And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode. Woo! Another episode of the Mecca of Banter podcast. The Mecca of Banter, where we are here. We're here to talk St. Louis City exclusively. We're not talking about the Prem. We're not talking about Champions League. We're solely talking about the St. Louis City 2026 season preview. I'm here. Henry Wind. You can find me on Twitter at Henry Wind. I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Andy Hoover. Good to have you, brother. How are you today? How was your Valentine's Day?
Great, man. Yeah, it was great. We kept it low key. We did our dinner out on Friday, and then Saturday we went to a couple of estate sales. We
Nice.
sat at home, ordered pizza. It was elite. We had a great time. So
Yeah, it's good. That's a Friday night. Enjoy the Saturday. Real good
yeah,
stuff.
big
Yeah.
time. I'm actually, apologies for the mess. We're painting the bedroom currently, so there's just some excess stuff up here, and I'm high off paint fumes. So we'll see what we've got to say about the old citizens today.
Should be an interesting podcast for sure. We're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to talk about the new coaching staff, the new front office, roster construction, potential just thoughts on the season as a whole. And what I want to start off this podcast by saying is we're going to try really hard to not make this the doom and gloom podcast, talk shit on the team and the front office and all that stuff. And we owe it to you all, we owe it to ourselves to be truthful and honest about where we see ourselves going into this season. There's a lot of discourse in our group chat specifically surrounding the lack of positivity. Perhaps previous seasons we came in pretty wide-eyed and excited about the start of the season, whereas this time skeptical, I think, is one word to describe how I'm feeling personally. But we're going to go through a couple of things, and so we're going to be honest, we're going to be straightforward. And also we, having done our research, as well as just being fans, listening to some of the other content creators in St. Louis, shout out to you all. I will say, off the bat, we are definitely not the stat guys. We are not like the guys who are going to bring XG and all these different cool hip things into this. We're very big on the eye test and how we feel and the vibes going into the team. We feel like we really know ball, and when we speak on it, it's coming a lot from the eye test and how we're feeling. So I'll give that as a caveat at the front end. And before we dive into our agenda, Hoover, I think that we should start off. We dropped a new kit that seems to be the talk of Twitter, the Tina Turner gold kit that will serve as our away kit for this season and next season. What are your initial thoughts on said kit?
Yeah, like you said, dude. I mean, we're gonna do our best to be positive and honest. That's who we are. This is also the no glaze show. That there will be
Yeah.
minimum glaze from us, which is why we will never get a
Yeah,
press
we'll
pass,
never
which
get
is fine.
media passes
We're never
ever.
gonna get media passes because I feel that and we love all the other content creators. This is not a shot at anybody else, but we've just been ourselves authentically from the jump. And if you've listened to anything I've ever said about Tottenham, I hate them more than anything, but I watch them every week. And I think, it's a bummer to have that feeling towards your local, but it is what it is. And honestly, dude, it kind of just the Tina Turner kit encapsulates everything that I have, a little bit of an issue with. And I've had a lot of time to sit with it. I don't think it's as bad of a kit as I thought off the rip. The leaks were terrible. So for
Terrible.
one, it is considerably better than the leaked images we saw a month or so ago. You never know the validity of that when you are seeing them, but usually the leaks are right to a certain degree. I just feel like it was a total missed opportunity, dude. It's the gold in itself is weird. And we love Matt Sabek on this podcast. I think we need to preface everything with that too. And I saw an interview with him saying, it's a different take on the city yellow that we've used and seen. Berkey's kit is the yellow, the city yellow, that color palette that they've got, I think is great. And I think what they had is something good and something that they should use going forward. But then he said, this gold is a different take on the city yellow. It's not city yellow though. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I wanted a Dortmund yellow kit by any means, but it was just, it just, everything kind of felt like a stretch.
Yeah.
Tina
It felt
Turner with
forced.
it felt forced. Tina Turner went to high school in St. Louis, and she was discovered here as an emerging artist, I guess, is really kind of the St. Louis Tina connection. And Sebek even said in this interview, it had to have been on KSDK or something. They had pitched this idea of a kit early in the club's, creation and degree. They felt it was a stretch, but it was all kind of on the mind for the last few years. And then they reached out to Tina Turner's team, got the approval. I think what they ended up doing, they have such a unique way of rolling things out that I think is great. Aside from the kit, the rollout was great. The video was great. The presentation of it all, the city live thing, all that's cool. It's just end of the day, man, I'm not buying this kit.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, someone said it kind of looks like a dress. Like
Mm.
if a dress were to be a t-shirt. And I saw someone on Twitter too make it, they photoed it blue and black. It was like, I don't know why everyone keeps saying gold.
Yeah.
Like it kind of reminded me of that. So, yeah, I think it's, at the end of the day, it's a kit. It's not anything that we'll see, towards the play on the pitch. But I was bummed with it. And the way that the MLS do things, we've got it for 2 years now. And truthfully, I think the best kits we've had yet were the original away and the most recent away.
Mhm.
A different take on the pinstripes from season 1 into the confluence, kind of river theme with a white kit and some red trim. I thought it was classy too. So it's just a weird jump for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels forced. And,
Yeah,
I think
stretch.
something that, that's difficult is Adidas is notoriously hard to work with when it comes to
Right.
creative design. Over the last couple of years, we've had the opportunity to hear from some different people on the creative team and talking about kit design and all that stuff. There's only so much that they're allowed to do,
Right.
which is why sometimes like the home kit isn't, as great as what you would think, despite what you said, Hoover, where like our creative team does such a good job from, the video rollouts to the city lives, all of that stuff. They do such a great job with it, but they are a little bit handcuffed with what they are and are not allowed to do. My issue with it is that like if we were going to do something this off the wall, meaning Tina Turner, like what's the connection to a football club? Why not choose someone from St. Louis? You know what I'm saying? And like, and what, and this is not me. Like I feel like we're actually of the Mecca of Banter. We're two of the more progressive guys on the Mecca of Banter. I feel like we can kind of stand on business a little bit. It feels like we were really trying to push a narrative with like, Billboard ran with this story that it was like the first female collaborative kit in the world, which isn't true, by the way. Barcelona did it 2 years ago for one of their Classico kits. They had, I think it was Carol G on the front. They
Yeah.
also, I think,
Yeah.
had Shakira at one point. Like they've done it before. And so, like, there's that, but there's the notoriety of having like a female collaborative kit. Like, and I'm down for that. Like,
Right.
female owned club. Like, I'm super down for that. It just felt like, why not choose someone from St. Louis? And like there,
Yeah.
the gold thing is such a interesting thing. Obviously, like Tina Turner, you can play on that gold theme. You're a season ticket holder. You received your season ticket holder, what was it, gift this year. It was really
Hmm.
beautiful gold packaging, like super neat. It was definitely like a whole thing, but it's like you could have partnered with anyone else from St. Louis and it didn't even have to be gold. It could have been like that, that like really light blue that the Cardinals wear sometimes. Like that would have been a sick collaboration and you could have put someone, I don't know. I just like we've said, it's felt forced, it felt stretched. And yeah, it's important to recognize that it's just a kit. It has nothing to do with how
Yeah.
we're going to play on the field, like you said. I don't know. I just was like, damn, dude,
No, I agree. And talking to friends too, it's like, take a Chuck Berry, dude.
Yeah.
Like I tweeted about this. Chuck Berry is quite literally a St. Louis legend. He is a rock and blues legend. There's, I'm sure, a little bit of a semi-stained past that he has, but at some point, dude, you just got to kind of, look past some of that. He's still a St. Louis legend. We've got the star in the loop on the ground in front of Blueberry Hill, where he really kind of rose into his fame. And like, dude, it
Hmm.
just could have played on the jazz and blues aspect that St. Louis really does
Yeah. Have a
represent
culture
and
of, yeah.
have a huge culture of. and it could have been navy, and it could have had, some sort of tribute to jazz or blues, or and there was just I we're not short on options, and we know that with this creative team, um, they are very directional with what they produce and how they produce it, and I appreciate that. We love that aspect of the team. Just feels like they went the wrong direction with a really good idea. Like it was there for them, and I just didn't love the final product of everything. And maybe we'll feel different when we see them on the field. I don't really know, but just doesn't really feel like we deserve to wear anything gold at the moment, nor
Yeah,
does it
very true.
make sense. So I don't
Yeah.
know, man.
Yeah,
That's
the
tough.
last thing I'll say about it, I want to give St. Louis City their flowers where we can. If you buy this kit, you also get free customization, which is something that
Cool.
they did, they've done it every year, and I just think that from a fan perspective, that is so awesome. Please do not stop doing that, St. Louis City. That is such a cool thing as like a kit lover myself, knowing that you get that free customization for like your city products. It's just such a great way to build that buy-in with the fan base. So I was really glad that they're doing that for this one as well. And I hope that that's just something that they continue to do year over year. But enough with the kit, enough with the aesthetics of things. Let's get into the brass tacks. Let's start off with head coach, shall we? We have a whole new look, everything from sporting director down to head coach to some of the players that we have. But starting off with Yoann Damet, years old, this will be, to my understanding, this will be like really his first stint as like a full-time first team coach. He's had like little stints where he's done like interim stuff, but never like a
Mhm.
full-fledged whatever. He's of the lineage of Wilfred Nancy, which anyone who's followed the MLS over the last 5-6 years, you know how much weight that carries. Frenchman, really kind of unknown in terms of what he will produce on the first team level. Now, we've gotten to see a little bit of, preseason stuff. We've gotten to see a little bit of how he is lining up the team, which we'll talk about later in this podcast from a formation perspective. But anything of note for you, Hoover, on the head coach here?
It's everything preseason and before, you have to take with a grain of salt. So, and we'll dig into what we saw in the preseason games later, but the he said everything right. You know what I mean? There's really only so much you can draw from just interviews and press conferences, and it sounds like a guy who really does want to win. He's got a lot to prove, frankly. Like this, I'm sure in his eyes, this could be his springboard to, a major level, head coach somewhere else, maybe in Europe. He was born
Mhm.
and raised in Liga 1 in France and really cut his teeth over there, and then kind of got some great experience, I think, under Nancy. There's no way to deny his level of impact in the MLS. And dude, like I remember watching some of those clips in the playoffs last year when they won last year, right? Not
Mhm.
2 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Brother, they were playing some unbelievable football, like
Yeah.
just up and back, passing, 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 final ball, cut, dagger. Like there's nothing to sit here and brag about because we don't know him. Very much similar to our Olaf
Mhm.
preseason games and what we were going to expect. Think he's got a lot to prove, obviously. He doesn't have, I don't think there's a crazy amount of weight on him this time around. Carolyn Kindle said off flat year ago that we have to be a playoff team. And I think that's the bare minimum to be a play, is for us to get to the playoffs.
Mhm.
So it's not like, if we have an okay season, I don't think he's getting the can. I don't think he's getting sacked. If we go on a 1 win in 15 games stretch like Olaf did, then yeah, bro, anyone's going to be on the books there. So, we have, I saw something. It's like I have zero option in whether or not I'm going to back this guy. I have to back this guy.
Yeah.
We have no other option. I hope he continues. I like young coaches. I think that's fun. I think he'll be a little bit more experimental with things, which we're kind of in a position to be experimental given the roster and where we're at and where we have been. So yeah, I hope he does great. I hope he goes out and just smashes it. There's no reason for me to not feel that way.
Yeah, and, I heard a stat this morning that statistically it's harder to not make the postseason in the MLS than it is to make the postseason in the MLS.
Yeah,
18 of the 30 teams make the postseason. So if you or if you're one of the 12, you're in the minority. Yeah, playoff berth has to be the
it's just
thing.
gotta be, dude.
But fact of the matter is, we are in a massive reset moment as a club. Lutz Pfannenstiel was at the helm for the last 5 years, even though we've only been a team for 3. He was here the 2 years before, building the philosophy, building the club. And like, I feel like our team was set up for him, and now he's no longer here. And Carnell is no longer here, and Olaf is no longer here. And so we are at a big old reset moment. What's unfortunate is I think a lot of people, the different content creators, the different podcasts out there, I think people are in a pretty big feeling of acceptance that we might just be ass, and which sucks,
That
going into the
sucks,
season.
dude.
But like, the skeptic in me says like, yeah, Damet had some experience under Nancy. He's worked with Corey Ray in the past, even as an assistant coach. But like, what's the difference between him and Critchley? Critchley was coming from a City 2 team, and he came in and, didn't have the experience as a first team coach. And similarly, Damet doesn't have that experience either. So what can we expect? I'm not sure. But even looking at our roster construction, I think it's important to call out. There's been a lot of movement from Corey Ray and co. If you remember at the end of the year last year, we talked about how much of our roster, how many people on our roster were in contract years. There were so many options at the end of this last season for players to get extended, not extended, things of that nature. And we moved on from quite a few people. Just to name, I think this is the most up-to-date list. Starting off with the most notable, Klaus and Kessler. We moved on from both of them. We also said goodbye to Alfredo Morales at the end of his 1-year loan, Paddleford at the end of his loan, Jay Reed, who's now at Sporting Kansas City, which feels like a dagger. Joey Zielinski didn't get picked up after his rookie contract. JGR is back in Australia. Michael Wenzel didn't get picked up, and Oliveira as the goalkeeper did not get picked up. So quite a few people that we moved on from. And I just want to call out quite a few people that played a lot of minutes last year. Think of, also Akil Watts. I didn't put that on here. He's also no longer with the club. From an incomings perspective, a couple people, Daniel Edelman, Conrad Vollum left and also came back on a permanent signing. We have Rafael Santos as a left wing back. We have the other Fall. We have Mbake Fall, who plays for us but doesn't have a visa, so he's not actually here. We have Polvara, we have Welsh, the goalkeeper, and then we're rumored Sergio Cordova as a striker. So it's really kind of like a mixed bag in terms of people that we have, players that we have that have come in. And I'm curious, like, any of those people, are you excited about any of those folks that you've seen?
I think so, this is jumping a little bit ahead. We're primarily looking at a 5-back, 3-back
Which
system.
fucking hate, bro. I
Yeah,
hate
dude.
it. I hate it.
You and me both. You and me both. And before we really get into that, I think the Fall pickup, sorry, Mbake, I think he's gonna end up going by Madu Mbake, maybe.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mbake is what he's rolling as. It's not gonna be the Fall wall. So
Yeah.
sorry to disappoint there, but
Unfortunately.
that I think in terms of guys who've played MLS, guys who were good in MLS, went elsewhere and are still relatively young. I think in a 3-back system, that's a really good pickup. So, the very least, we've got 3-ish capable center backs. You need those guys, 2 of them being, just physical demons and the ability to pass the ball. Falu Fall, we saw be able to break
Mhm.
lines with passes. In a 3-back system, that is imperative because
Mhm.
you're relying on at least one, probably 2 of those guys to be able to progress the ball and kind of pick up an attack. I think that's of the 6 or 7, and 6 confirmed. I think that's the best one. Um,
But even with that, dude, like the thing is though, and again, not to just be like doom and gloom, that's the best one, and that's just based on projections. Like that's not
mhm.
based on like we've watched a ton of footage and we know who this guy is. Like he had a really good year in 2023 playing for LAFC, and that's awesome. But like there's a reason why he's here with us in 2026 and not elsewhere, is because the last couple of years he hasn't been awesome. He's coming here to hopefully springboard his career, which is nerve-wracking, you know? Like, if we are gonna play this 5-3-2 that we saw during preseason, or this 3-5-2, whatever you wanna call it, it depends on having capable, competent center backs who can play the ball. And, you know, it's interesting. I laughed so hard. I don't even remember whose podcast it was, and I don't wanna, like, call them out for whatever. Someone was saying that, like, I guess he's had some injury concerns. Oh no, he was talking about what's the center back that we just signed? The older one, 30, Lucas McNaughton. I forgot to talk
Trialist,
about him.
yeah.
Yeah, Lucas McNaughton, we signed him too, and he's had so many injury concerns. And at his best, he'd be a very competent center back to be in a back three. Like, that's great. That's a good pickup. But they said that, like, you know, they said that we trust our medical staff to keep him injury free. And I literally laughed out loud because I was like, in what season have any of our center backs been injury free at all? Like, any of them, you know? Like, I
Yeah.
think Kyle Hebert may take the cake for the only center back who's been injury free
Yeah.
over the last 3 years, but like every center back we've had has been full of injuries. So at our best, you know, we're looking at, you know, Mbake, we're looking at Fall and maybe Baumgartel as the back three, or maybe it's McNaughton, I'm not sure. But then when you get to our backups, all three of our backups are significant drop-offs. You know, we're very much staring down the barrel of a Kyle Hebert and Josh Yarrow and probably Timo Baumgartel back three to start the season on Saturday,
Yep.
which is terrifying in the year of
Yep.
2026. So, you know, this 3-5-2 is going to be very high emphasis on, or I guess when it's played well, I guess I should say. We don't actually know what Damet is going to do, but when it's played well, the ball knowers inside of us, it's a very high emphasis on your wing backs. A lot flows through with the assumption that will be Rafael Santos, that will be Conrad Vollum, Thomas Totland. I guess there's like tons of speculation that, you know, he might be the third center back. I'm not sure.
What?
It
He's like
begs
my
the
size.
Dude, I know, but it begs the question of, like, is Celio Pompeo going to be transitioned to a wingback? We saw what that looked like under Olaf Melberg. He can't track back. Is Mackay Joyner going to be transitioned to a wingback or a center midfielder or a striker? Like, there's only so many positions you can play in this system if you're a winger, you know? So I have so many questions about what our back line is going to look like. But there is someone else that I want to highlight just from this incoming crop of players, which is Daniel Edelman. I believe this isn't blasphemous to say, but I would go so far as to say is that this is our marquee signing of the window thus far. A true six. How many years have we been crying out for a six, a ball-winning midfielder who literally just gets the ball back, sits in front of the back four, or I guess back five in this case, isn't overly concerned with progressive passes, about being the guy on the ball who can just get the ball to Hartle or Leuven or some of our other ball players. He's coming to us from the New York Red Bulls, where he was very highly rated, but wasn't into long-term plans of the club, which could potentially be concerning. I think from just the scouting that we've seen, the interviews that we've listened to, and our own ball knowledge as well, his biggest strength is that ground coverage. He is going to be that all consuming, that all covering center midfielder. On the contrary to Chris Durkin, which feels a little bit sometimes like he's positionless, like he runs everywhere
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
field. It sounds like Daniel Edelman is a little bit more positionally sound, so you can expect him to cover a lot of ground, put in a lot of tackles. He's not afraid to get stuck in, but his biggest weakness, and we'll call it out now, is his progressive passes on the ball. Some of the Twitter folks over at the New York Red Bulls were laughing. You know, he'll give the ball away 5 times in 15 minutes just trying to play the ball forward, which is not exactly great. And this is where it's going to get interesting. Okay, so from the formation perspective, if you play a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3, are you playing 3 in the midfield, 2 in the midfield? What are you doing? If it's a midfield 2, let's just say for the sake of conversation, it's going to be Edelman and Durkin. It's terrifying because the center midfielders are expected to do a lot on the ball, and neither Durkin nor Edelman have exemplary on
Right.
ball
Yeah.
creation. So that terrifies me. But if we can play some version of a midfield three where Edelman gets the ball, plays a 5 yard pass to Leuven or to Hartle or someone else who can carry the ball forward, I feel pretty okay with it. But he's definitely one that is going to be for the future. He's not going to be the guy who is the savior now. He signed through 2029. He has an option for the 2030 season. He's young. He's 22 years old. It's a lot to put on this kid, but there's potential for this to be a side changing signing as a six. And it may not be this season, but hopefully next season he will be that guy. I expect him to make some mistakes. I expect him to be learning some stuff. It's very different than signing a 27-year-old who is like proven in this league. He's still a young
Right.
kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in agreement on all that, and I think if we could see an Edelman, Leuven, call it a double pivot when in reality, Leuven's going to be more of that eight. I think that's fine. We saw Durkin not work in that role with Leuven, and I think we all love the concept of Durkin, and I'm sure he is a really good dude. I've been around him when we've played a little ball
Yeah. Hmm.
with Kaya
Kaya.
and whatnot. So great dude. It's just that we love those, get after it, banging body sixes. He just doesn't hold his position well enough for that to be his out and out kind of role. So, I think there's a world, and we haven't even mentioned this Paul Vera kid who came from Aberdeen. Thank you, Lutz Flannenstiel, who is their sporting director now. But he was pretty highly rated from the Scottish fans. That when they lost him, they all wished him well. The tweets were great. They were like, "Man, you're getting a dog." They're all really good things to see. I think what we haven't really hit on is that there's a good chance he and Durkin are playing center back. Because if you're going to have, like we talked about, if you're going to have this three center back system, you know, I don't love it, but those guys immediately give better passing outlets than, a majority of the guys we've listed for center back
Yeah.
or just off the bat. So I think that's probably going to be the trend. And we're going to see one of those guys who's, historically more of a six probably slide in. And even then, if we're playing three out and out center backs, Edelman's not going very far up the field. Like he's going to filter into that fourth center back position almost, so to speak. I think a lot on transition. If they're coming at us, he's just going to be back there, in my opinion. Do I know this? No. But it just makes a lot of sense. And if that's how you play, if you're going to play three, three in the back, you've just got to have one of those anchors to cover for you. So there's going to be a lot of movement on that back line, 100%. And yeah, what you said, we were going to rely so hard on the wing backs. If there's a silver lining here, I think we've kind of got the wing backs for that to work. Like Wallum and Santos are really what I've always viewed. And Wallum being my, main kind of reference point, he is so unbelievably that wing back, get up the line, get back, cut in if need be, you link with the midfield. He does a lot of that, and he has done a lot of that, even from our flat four, left back position last year. So I think if there's a positive to look at, we may actually have the personnel to filter that in on the back line. Whether that's to be seen, we don't know. So, it's just positive to at least like see the idea on
Yeah.
paper. Yoann Damet's got a plan, and then we kind of filter in a few of these guys that look like they will really fit the system. Santos scored a free kick with his first touch of the ball in preseason.
Yeah.
I'm in
Dude.
on that. I'm
Yeah. You're
so
like,
in
let's go.
on that, dude. Are you fire me up? That was sick. So everything I've read about him is that he, previously with Orlando, he was one of the highest percentage crossers of the ball to complete the cross. Like, did we just sell our big,
Yeah, exactly.
Brazilian
Did you?
striker? Yes, we did. Don't know who he's crossing the ball to yet, but that is a positive thing to me. And I'm all for being the wing up and back cross the ball team. Like we don't have to get fancy, man. I just want to see good footies. Um, that's the silver lining. I mean, with the guys coming in for me, I really like. I really like. I love that we kept Wallum, and I think Santos is going to add, in the system that we think is going to happen.
Yeah. It is funny. I'm looking at this roster construction. I feel like we said it last year with like the end of contract people, but these are all of the folks whose contracts expire at the end of 2026, and some of them have like option years that can be picked up by
Mm.
the club. But we have Bumgartle, we have Kyle Hebert, we have Yarrow, we have Totland, Leuven, Ostruck, Durkin, Hoichert, who is actually set to expire in June of 2026, which will be interesting. Sangbin, Celio, Simon Betcher, Miggy Perez, Orozco, Brennan McSorley. Those are a lot of players who are set to leave at the end of the season if they don't get picked up. But we've talked about this back five, back three a couple of times. If I were to kind of like look at my crystal ball and give you a little bit as a listener, like what to expect from St. Louis City this season, just from a formation alone, I would prepare for a lot of counterattack, a lot of sitting in, sometimes defending in like a 5-4-1, which is some of the worst football to watch across the world. You know, I mentioned it earlier, but a back five always concerns me in the midfield. But I do not expect things to be pretty right off the bat. I expect us maybe to be reliant on Santos's crossing ability from a set piece, getting on the end of it, hopefully. That is kind of what I am expecting going into the season. I just think it's going to be a grind. You can expect that. But there are a couple of storylines I think that might be worthwhile to pay attention to. The first is notably what you just brought up with the big Brazilian of Joao Klaus getting moved on to LA Galaxy. We are linked with Cordova from BSC Young Boys over in Switzerland, a journeyman to say the least, not exactly prominent, but we're looking at a loan with an option to buy, which to me signals we're unsure, but maybe it's the best of what is available now.
Yeah.
We got to get another body in. We can't just rely on Betcher and McSorley. And for the love of God, I have no idea what's going on with Cedric Toichert. I don't know where he's going to play in this lineup. It could be a striker, it could not be. I have no idea. But, do you believe or do you think that this is buying time for like a DP level or a TAM level striker or a 9 in the summer window?
I think it has to be. I think there's just no chance this is the solution. Um, reading the young boys, not a fan, not a
Yeah.
fan of
Yeah. People are
Cordova.
not exactly stoked.
Stoked. And I think, Michael Chat City Tactics said this looks and feels to be much more of a band-aid while
Hmm.
we do weigh up the option of a DP9 or just any sort of 9, frankly. We're already out of the European transfer window. That immediately puts a cap on kind of who's available and what we can do before the beginning of the season. So yeah, I think a new striker is gonna come in the summer. I think our position on the table will matter as to who that will be. Uh, we've not Boots's whole mindset was designated team, designated
Hmm.
team. I'm sick of that. No more
Yeah,
designated team. We don't have Boots
totally.
anymore. We have Corey Ray. I would love just a big body, sick striker. That's it. And I think we've got room to play with both the DP and the U22 initiative thing. We've got a role there that needs to be filled, whether that's, a very talented Argentinian 20-year-old or a 28-year-old, seen it all, done it all in Europe striker. We've got a whole world that we need to be looking at. And I don't think Corey Ray's not. I'm not in a position to be calling for his head yet either, because he was kind of sold a bag of goods and just this floundering football team with holes that needed filling immediately. And I think he's done an okay job of doing that now, just to literally fill in the squad. So yeah, it just, you got to get somebody to get the fans on their feet. Like you need. What about jersey sales? There's so many intangibles that a team of our size should be factoring in, and like, bro, whose kits are we buying right now? Like, if I were to
Exactly.
put a name on the back of the kit, I'd still get a Lewin kit. Like,
Hmm.
it's just what it is. Or Hartle. I love Hartle. I think he's great, and I think he's really grown in a leadership role and become kind of one of the
Go-to
mainstays that guys
guys. Yeah.
can look to. Yeah, absolutely. And we love that. But we can't rely on those two. And especially, we've seen this week specifically, Lewin really kind of open up about some of his recent family struggles, which, the Mecca sends absolutely nothing but love to the guy. And we've not really been the ones like, where the hell is he? Which understandably so. Like sometimes, the club was quiet on it. We all kind of knew what the situation was when he wasn't with the team. But I think, he wanted to come out and tell the media, tell the fans that what was really kind of happening behind the scenes. And I have nothing but respect for that. And I'm not going to hound anybody for, a potential absence. We're going to have absences from the guy. It is what it is. And, human first. There's no concerns on my end about that. But without him, we are just not the same team. So, who do you get up for? Like, we can't rely on Hartle, I think, is fantastic. We just can't. He can't be the only one on the pitch that's doing it. So I don't know, man. We need somebody big, and I understand at this point that we're not going to get that someone big. And Ray had way more pressing issues to cover first. And I do think the Klaus, end of the day, I think it was good business. I understand the emotional
Yeah,
issue with Klaus
totally.
leaving. It was really good business, dude. We picked him up for 3.5 million. We sold him for just over two. 10 goals in 2 seasons out of three. It's an okay kind of, he's a good nine. He's not a DP nine. And that's exactly what LA Galaxy picked him up as. So I think we had good memories with him. And, I'll never forget the Austin goal, our first game, the outside the foot flick, back post, it's just things that you live forever with. But he's gone, and apparently it's Simon Betcher's, 9 position at the
Time to
moment
shine.
to take on. So yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see how that goes.
I think that is an adequate description of the nine. It'll be interesting, just like you said. Is it going to be someone who's been there and done that, or is it going to be some like young up and coming stud? I just think that a nine is such a hard position to sign for. You have to shoulder a lot of responsibility as the nine, and especially on a team who's not like creating a ton of chances. I will say, like Simon Betcher, especially when he came in that first couple weeks, he was finishing chances. He was scrappy. He was making it happen. But like when you're expecting him to be the week in, week out starter, he's not going to create from nothing. He's a great guy to bring off the
We
bench at the 70th minute
Yeah,
and do that.
right.
But, I'm a little bit worried about who that's going to be and, who's scoring the goals for us. It can't
Yeah,
just be a reliant on penalties or set pieces. We saw towards the tail end of last season, Marcel Hartle score some bangers kind of out of nowhere. We saw him score some set pieces. He finished with, I think, 9 goals or however many goals. Like he was our top scorer and good for him, but we can't
yeah,
just rely on that, like you said. And the other storyline that I'm watching this season that I'll touch on is just what's going to happen with Makai Joyner, with Celio Pompeo, and I think even Sangbin. And the reason that I say that is those 3 players are very, very, very clearly wingers. They love playing out wide, being creative, driving at the back line, and in a 5-3-2 system or a 3-5-2 system, you're either going to put in the work to be a wingback, which all 3 of those players do not like doing, or you're going to transition into like a center midfield or a striker, which I personally think limits the best part of their ability. So
right.
with Celio, I think that we love the guy. How many times have we like tweeted "Let
Yeah.
Celio dance"? But I think that there's an understanding of if he doesn't fit the system, you shake hands and say like thanks for everything and go play on a team that plays a 4-3-3 or something and go ball. Makai Joyner would be a really tough parting,
Hmm.
knowing how high we are on that kid, consistently brought up to the youth national team to represent the United States. Sangbin is probably going to go to the World Cup with South Korea. If you can't fit those guys into a system, it's a really, really tough thing to do. And I mean, I just watched it with Ruben Amorim at Manchester United. When you're looking at certain guys not being able to make
Right.
that team, it would
Yeah.
just be a hard thing to look at. And so I'm going into this season very curious of what we're doing with the striker position and very curious of what we're going to do with our wingers. Preseason isn't everything. Watching these Coachella games is not everything, but the amount of times that I watched Makai Joyner play like an 8 like a box to box center midfielder. And I was like, this isn't it. So I'm very
Interesting.
curious with that of what's going to happen. Celio played one of those two strikers up top. Didn't love that. Yeah, we said it at the beginning, but it's kind of like a curious time to be a St. Louis City fan because kind of across the fan base, there's very little optimism about going into the season, and maybe that's good for the team to not have the weight of expectation. But times are grim, and with that being said, I think that we should finish up with some way too early predictions on where we're finishing. Let's start off. We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to do where are we finishing in the table this season, who is your MVP this season, who is going to be our top scorer, and then who do you think will be our breakout player of the season? So, starting off with position, where do you think that we will finish in our conference this season?
Just looking at the oh yeah, the Western Conference has gotten more difficult too, dude. Like,
Mhm.
what is it? 9 gets a wild card spot, ninth place. There's just not a lot of teams on this list that I think we're beating week in and week out. Like
I know.
San Jose and Sporting KC, I feel good nicking 3 points off. And frankly, we haven't had very good luck against Sporting Kansas City either. They've just been terrible everywhere else too. I don't know, man. I think best case scenario, we're fighting for that wild card spot. I truthfully am, at the moment, I don't see us a playoff team. I think we finish 10th or 11th. And again, I don't know who the 4 teams below us are. So it's a tough one for me, but I think making the playoffs would be truthfully be a miracle at this point.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think that we're gonna be kind of like on that bubble for the wild card spot. And I think, on decision day or maybe a game or two before, I think we're gonna fall just out of contention of the playoffs. But I expect us to finish somewhere in the 10 spot, 9 if we're
Yep.
really lucky, somewhere
Yep.
in there. And like, you know, that's what we think right now. And not that any one of us has kind of the keys to the future, but who knows what comes in the summer window. As a reminder, this season is going to be really, really, really weird with the World Cup in the middle of the season. There's like 2 breaks this season where we go like 50 something days without playing a game. So it's going to feel like it's 2 different seasons, and that's going to give Corey Ray a huge opportunity to make some moves in the summer. Things could really turn around the back half of the year. The league's cup break is another one of those breaks that's going to happen this year. So just a lot of things, but I agree somewhere in that 9-10 slot. As for MVP, who do you think is going to be our most valuable player this season?
Honest out of Berkey, like I truthfully think it's going to be Berkey because that's who we are at the moment.
Yeah,
Just
it's going to have to
comfortably,
be.
it's going to have to be. He's comfortably the best player that we have on the team. I think it'll be Hartle. I think, one of the fall, Mbake or Falu could have a shout there if we're really, really solid defensively all season. But, um, best availability, best ability is availability. And Hartle's been available for his entire career. I just looked up 10 goals, 5 assists last year. That out of a 10 is fantastic. Like, I think that's a really good, especially on a really bad team. That's a pretty good output given the fact that we were literally bottom of the table for the entire year.
Mhm.
So if we get anyone around him and we score some goals and we win a couple of games, I think it's going to be pivotal on Hartle. He's going to take that and hopefully run with it.
I think he also finished second in the MLS for minutes played as well. I think he was only
Hmm.
behind
Hmm.
one other guy, which is pretty impressive. My MVP is going to be Hartle as well, and hate to double up on back-to-back seasons, but he's just going to have to shoulder a lot of responsibility. I don't know any other way to
Yeah.
look at it. I do expect a bounce back might be too strong of a word for Berkey, but I do expect some better performance this season than last season. There was a couple of errors last season that we were like, what the fuck is that about? I expect a better performance, less distraction this year. I think last year with like the contract stuff, I think was in the back of his mind. He also made some offseason moves with his family, and they're now here. That has to calm him down as well. So Hartle is going to be my MVP. Berkey's going to play a big role. And let's move on to Golden Boot top scorer for the team. I don't know.
Who, dude? Like who?
Like, I think if I wanted to be safe, I would say Hartle as well, because I know he's going to be our penalty taker, which is, we're probably going to get a couple of those. He'll also take free kicks, which is that, and you have to believe that he'll be in the game more than Leuven will. I hope that Betcher puts in a couple. If Betcher
Yeah,
finishes,
man.
top
Me
three,
too.
great. But yeah, I think Hartle's going to be
Betcher's one of
the
those cats, dude. I think he is too. Betcher's one of those cats that like we love rooting for. Like
yeah, totally, totally.
I want him to do so well. Like, local kid went and played for SLU just as a defender, and you would feel the exact same. The worst profile of any attacker you ever faced, dude. Just an antagonizer, like all on you, chirps all day, runs harder than anybody. Like it's just the technical side that I think we're a little concerned about. But dude, I really hope he backs. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I hope he does well.
what a good piece of business to do. Bring him in on loans. It's not an expensive transfer. I think I think it would be a great season for him to kind of have a coming out party, but I still think it's going to be Hartle. There's
Yeah,
just no one else on this roster, dude.
yeah,
Like,
no one's going to do it.
we don't even know if Teuchert's in the city currently.
Mhm.
Like, Lewin is going to have the odd free kick or PK. He scored a couple great ones from outside the box, but there's just nobody else that gets me up on my feet. Like,
Yeah,
it's just got to be Hartle. Like,
yeah.
he's everything that we've
Yeah,
currently
he's
got.
he's everything to us.
He's everything, dude.
Last but not least, your breakout player, which doesn't necessarily mean like he has to be a rookie or like this is his first season, but it could be, for me, I'll just say mine right off the bat. I think it's going to be Vollum. I think that he's going to be so pivotal in this wingback position. We didn't say it earlier when we were kind of going into him, but I said like his top strength is his versatility and how many different positions he can play, and he can be in a starter in almost every position on the field. But his biggest weakness is his versatility, that he can play almost any position in the field, and you never know where he's going to play week in and week out. You just know he's going to be in the 11. My assumption is now with the moves that we've made in the offseason, we will see significantly more left wing back or right wing back from Conrad Vollum, and I expect a lot from him. I think that he's going to be one of our most important players this season.
I'm gonna go Brendan McSorley.
Nice.
I
Say it.
think I think we are in a position to let the youth play.
Mm-hmm.
We let the boys get some minutes in their legs, and everyone's really high on him anyway. We also saw him play really well towards the end of the season last year, and was just kind of just bagging for a little bit there, assist, goal, assist. He was up and in the mix, and in what we think this formation is going to unfold, I think he could really be that Nicholas Giacchini profile to set up and score when possible and feed whoever's up top, you playing the out nine, or feed Hartle. I really think he's going to have the opportunity to lock himself into the roster and lock himself into the starting 11 every week, because I was going to maybe say Sangbin. I'm worried about where he plays and how he
Well,
fits
that's the
into the
thing.
system.
I think that he's going to be better this season, but I literally have no idea where he's going to play.
I
I have
don't know.
no
No,
clue.
no, because he was a right wing slash right mid,
Yeah,
which I
last year when we
guess
signed
means
him,
you
we
could
were
be
we were like, finally, we have a right winger, we have a right midfielder. He can get up, he can get back. But now we're like, I don't know what he's going to do.
I don't know if that even fits, right? So there's a few of those guys that I could have put in here, but truthfully, man, I think we're going to see McSorley play a lot. And again, he's got a little bit of that Betcher in him while also being younger. And I think the talent level, there's a higher ceiling there than Betcher. So just another one of those dogs that you want on your side, chasing balls down, hunting down defenders, and making turnovers. And that was one thing I did see a little bit of with the preseason games is
Yep.
I did see a press. There was a press, and he's a pressing monster. That suits him so well. I love a good press. I love a coordinated press, and I hope we use it effectively. But that's my shout for breakout player.
Yeah, I think right now he's first man off the bench for me, which is nice. Ladies and gentlemen, as we get to the end of this podcast, we always do these live. We're recording in real time. The Champions League is going on, and Monaco is up 2-0 over PSG with
Am I
2-4.
watching a Balogun double?
2 Florian Balogun
Balo
goals
double, bro.
against the PSG, which is
Jeez.
hilarious. A missed pen from Vitinha. Crazy stuff going on here.
Terrible for my bets.
Yeah. It's just sometimes it really do be like that. But time will tell with our preseason input on St. Louis City. We start the season this Saturday at City Park, a 1:30 game, which rocks for a home opener.
Rocks, dude. That rips. A
Dude,
day home opener.
a day home. It's amazing. I unfortunately will be in Chicago, but I hope you have a blast. If you are attending the game, have so much fun. I hope everyone cheers super loud and gives a great home environment. Time to wipe away the disappointment that was last season. That is not me forgetting about last season or getting the front office off the hot seat. It's just I want the vibes to be back at City Park, and we'll start that up on Saturday. So as always,
first 10 games, Men in Black,
clean slate.
blinker right in the face. Nobody remembers. Last year's over. You know, we tried not to be super negative this whole podcast, and there's nothing to be negative about right now. Let's just be.
Our team hasn't played. We're good.
Our team hasn't played. Let's get up. Let's get these guys going. Yoann Damet's going to be a worldie, absolute class. I know it. Quick shout to Caleb Leon. Shot us
100%.
a DM on Twitter. We will see you all at City Live tomorrow night. Well, I think we're going to release this today, right?
Yes.
So if you are watching this, me and Nikki Hayflinger will be out at City Live. Caleb hooked us up with tickets. We are excited to do really whatever that is. I think it's just kind of like a big preseason. Let's do this thing. I'm excited for it.
We'll be there no matter what.
I'm ready. We'll be there no matter what. Say what's up. Give us a shout. Take a picture. We'll do whatever. We'll promote everyone. We don't like talk trash on other podcasts because I do think we are a little different. But end of the day, we're rooting for you guys too. We're rooting for the team. We want them to win. We want you to be successful. Let's all collab and come together. One love, brother.
One love, brother.
One love.
Hit us up on the social media per usual, and we'll catch you next week. Cheers, fellas.
Sir, cheers.